Steve, the early 20th century architect's vision of the house as a machine for living in often extended beyond the individual home to that of the whole community. And they envisioned a future with clean, affordable housing organized rationally into planned neighborhoods and cities. And urban planning and architecture became holistically entwined in their envision. What do you vision as the housing development of the future, and how does it differ from today's tract housing?
As you know, most zoning today has tended to segregate uses, and the exception of that to some degree is in cities, but it's certainly true outside of cities that zoning tends to segregate more than integrate. That's shifting. I think some of the lessons of urbanism, as we've re-urbanized as a nation here in the U.S. and as the rest of the world is rapidly urbanizing, hugely, and very, very rapidly urbanizing, we've learned that the best strategies are not about segregation, they're about integration. It's fundamentally about integrating housing with services of all different sorts, commercial services, institutions, churches, schools, and getting these things closer and closer together rather than further and further apart is not only creating more vibrant, lively, round-the-clock, 7-day-a-week, 24-hour-a-day communities, but it's overall lowering the energy use of our culture. You can spend less time, less money, and less energy moving longer distances, and instead do more walking, get more exercise, visit and use facilities and commercial enterprises, institutional enterprises that are closer and closer. And that's a significant shift in the mindset of both individuals in our culture and increasingly regulatory authorities and boards and our laws. More and more individuals, particularly young, are moving into cities, and they're doing so in part because they want a more integrated life that has more available to them at closer distances, that doesn't require as much use of the automobile. That's certainly a shift that we're seeing more and more of, and slowly but surely zoning codes are following suit to support those degrees of integration.
So, Steve, then would we expect to see housing types such as single-family and multifamily, along with commerce and industry and institutions, as well as green spaces, more both spatially and functionally integrated in the city of the future?
Absolutely. I mean, that's already here, and it's going to get more and more intensively integrated. And increasingly, those individuals who like to work in places like that, like to live in places like that, that are active all the time and that have lots of commingled activities, different types of economic activity, institutional activities. So we're seeing more and more commingling, in increasingly, buildings have all different types of use in them. You're seeing office mixed in with hotel, mixed in with condominium housing, sometimes even small institutional uses put into them. So, more and more commingling of activity, and seems to have lots of benefits for everyone, for users, for I have to believe lowers the economic risk profile to have more diversity of use in individual buildings and dwellings. Lots of positive things are coming out of this, and more of a sense that the dangers associated with commingling uses are far outweighed by the benefits.
Steve, final question. What should the residential construction and home improvements industries be doing today to set their sights on the housing market of tomorrow? And what are the implications for their business models, the products and services they provide, and the customers who they serve?
I think in all things, consumers are becoming more and more educated and more desirous of education. You can see, for instance, in the food industry over the last just few years, they regularly post the caloric intake and content associated with food offerings and other information about food. And I think you can see something similar, and we'll see something similar happening in the housing sector, that the consumer is going to become more and more educated in the years immediately ahead of us and more desirous of information to allow them to understand and manage and make informed choices about their housing, about the consumption of housing, if you will, in the same way that they are making more informed choices about the consumption of food. And examples of that abound. I think one example would be tools and ways of looking at buildings that are associated with life cycle analysis of the cost of a building and understanding everything in a building in a more sophisticated and detailed way before you make your decisions about where you're going to live and how you're going to live in it. And life cycle analysis involves information about various things. Certainly energy use is part of the equation, and really fully understanding that, understanding benchmarks that you can compare against and make informed choices against. But it also goes way beyond that to information about the toxicity of materials in a building, about the carbon and the amount of energy that is embodied in a building the day you buy it or open it and start to use it. And if you're in the housing industry or the building product industry, having those profiles and understanding that and presenting it to consumers is going to, I think, represent a sea change in the years ahead about how decisions are made, how people make decisions in industry about what to buy in the building design construction industry, what people want to buy, what they want to own, what they want to live in. And that was all unthinkable, again, just a few years ago, but is a transformation that's upon us. We can see it coming. And again, those who climb into it early make the information available and then start to modify their products to make the products perform better across important criteria that consumers ultimately tell the marketplace are important to them, they're going to thrive. Those that don't will wither and die away. So it's going to change the competitive marketplace, I would predict, as we all come to know more about what's really around us and what's really in it, what it's doing to us, what it's doing to our environment, what it's doing to our culture.
Steve, thank you very much.
You're very welcome, Jordan. It's been a real pleasure being here and enjoyed the conversation.